Well, hello, Bill.
Hey Don, how you doing today?
Doing great. Something's falling out of the sky.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know. It's been a long time since.
Well, actually, we had a little bit of it yesterday, I understand.
A little bit.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
We need more, but we don't need a storm right now.
No,
at least
not
for the
right
next
this
few
second.
minutes.
Yeah.
But Buster's not with us today, so Bill, I guess you and I are going to try to get through this. Just
I think we can handle it. I think we can probably handle it. We'll miss him, but
we'll give it a shot. So, what was happening in the store today, Bill?
I mean, we have been extremely busy today. We've had, of course, the Pottery Festival is going on, so we've even had some potters here at the store today. So we've had people from literally all over the world. It's always true today, but today it was interesting. I got interested in occupations today. We had a lot of teachers, school teachers, and for whatever reason, I had 3 librarians come in. I don't remember. I always ask people what they do just out of curiosity, just see the different kind of folks we have here in our store. Had a lot of librarians and school teachers today. It was a big day for them. From a lot of Tennessee people, a lot of folks from Florida, as we always do. And since I lived in Florida, just around Tampa Bay area, I've had some good conversations with some of those folks that we know the same area. And then I had some people from St. Louis, and I lived there at one time too. So it's been kind of neat to visit with some folks. At the Sautee Store, you meet people from all over the world, and it's just so much fun, week after week, just to get a chance to visit with people from every profession and every part of the world.
Yeah, you mentioned the Folk Pottery and Arts Festival. They had live music today. They had food trucks, and they had all the potters come, and there was a big crowd.
Yeah.
And we experienced a big crowd here as part of a really busy day.
Well, and we had great music here today too.
We had a good group. We had a couple new folks today, and we had our own standbys too, so
Sure.
we had a lot of fun. But we have a very special guest with us today. Mr. Hue Rainey is with us. Hugh, welcome.
Good.
Welcome
Good to be here.
Good to the Front Porch Podcast, the Old Sautee Store. Hugh's been around these parts. He's not always been from here, but he's been around these parts for a long time. I've known him, we figured out before we came on air, probably 40 plus years or thereabouts. And Hugh has a lot of stories to tell about the area and about his experiences in the area. And Hugh, we're just so thankful to have you today.
Well, I'm glad to be here and share those stories. There is a number of them, and they're pretty widespread. But the first thing I wanted to tell the folks is that something nobody ever really tells is about this valley, that this was one of the original sites for Lake Lanier. And fortunately it didn't happen, because it would have destroyed a beautiful place. So they went down in the Beaufort area and they put in Lake Lanier there, and almost running to Atlanta. So we're fortunate for that, although I'm looking out here at the valley, that's where it would have been. We would all have been waterfront right now. But it didn't happen. That's good.
Instead of those motorcycles, we'll be hearing boats go by.
Yeah, you'd be hearing boats and all kind of things. And that was before my time here. It was not before my time as a kid, because Dad and I live with my dad, and he used to take me up to where the site of Beaufort Dam is now, and showed me where they were going to build the dam, and we would cook out and spend the day up there. And I was pretty young. But it was a nice event and a nice memory. Now it's all changed, and it's gone to the direction hopefully it should have gone. I know it is for this area here, and it is one of the top tourist areas in the state of Georgia at one time, and I think still it was number 3 in the state. Like I say, I have a myriad of information that I've just accumulated, so I'll try to share some of that through the time today with you.
We're looking forward to it.
Good, thank you.
So you were involved, Hugh, with the transformation of Helen to what it is today in the early days.
Yeah, that's a good story. I was always told you get about 3 opportunities in your life to do something special that you ought to be sure not to turn down and look at it hard. And I came up here at one point just getting away. I lived in Stone Mountain and spent the weekend, and I had a cabin over on Screamer Mountain in Rabun County. But I thought I'd come to the Helen area first. I had heard they were building a golf course, and the golf course was not open, but it was right in town, and it resembled a golf course. And I just so happened to have met the gentleman who was behind it, a fellow named Pete Hodkinson. Pete left his mark all over promoting. He didn't like to be a promoter. He told me right off the bat, he said, you know, they call me a promoter, and that's not what I want to be. I want to be a developer, but I always end up promoting. And he did, and he was very successful with it, but there wasn't anybody else to do what he did. So I met him, and he took me all around his Helen, kind of what I called it, and then later that day I told him I better leave. I had to get over to my place in Rabun County, and that's what I did. And I met a guy in Rabun County that had designed the Hellendorf Motel. A fellow known as Bear Newton. He was a good architect from Gainesville, and we played golf together and talked, and he had plans for me. He wanted me to come over and head up some of his real estate and see what I could do with it. They wanted to. They had many things they wanted to do, but they just wasn't in sync or program yet. Well, he asked me to meet him at the club there at Kingwood at 11 o'clock Sunday. I got up prepared to meet him at the club at 11 o'clock, and he no-showed me. Well, I wasn't ready to go home, so I got thinking about it. I thought I would run back through Helen. And that's exactly what I did. And who'd I run in again but Pete? And we tossed out some things, and he showed me more of his dream. And that's what it was. It was all dreams, but he had the knack to make dreams work. And it was fascinating to me. I had always figured that anything could make it if you just go beyond dreaming. You could make it work. And before I left, he said, "Why don't you come up here and be part of my dream?" And I said, "I don't know. That's a big step." And I was just looking for a place to play golf. And he said, "Well, I think you got a future up here, and we could use you." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Here's my number. Call me. Call me after you go home. Think about it." And I did. Went home, and on Tuesday morning I got up, and things were just right for me to call him. And I called him, and he said, "I'm glad to hear from you. I'm going to be here all day, and let me call you right back." He said, "Can you come up here right now? Be up here by noontime." I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I did. And he said, "Be sure and bring your golf clubs." Well, I didn't know why. They wasn't finished with the golf course. But I brought them. And I got here. He said, "Come on, I want to introduce you to someone up here that counts, really counts." And he introduced me to a Mr. Jim Wilkins. We had lunch together, and then we played golf. And Jim had his own private golf course that was designed just for him and his guests. So we played golf there, and throughout the day we talked about me and what they were doing, and ended up. Jim asked me at one time. He said, "We'd like to have you up here," and Pete can talk to you more about that. And he made me a deal, which I had never had a deal such as that. He offered me some property, a little bitty piece of property on the river for me to build my house and to run a golf shop. Well, it was pretty much a no-brainer to me. Nobody had ever given me anything, especially a piece of property. And here I was being offered something for something that I could do, like run his golf course and help them with their development. So I went on home, and it didn't take me long before I called Pete back, a couple days, and I told him, I said, "Pete, I think I want to do that." And he said, "Well, come on up, let's talk further about it." And we did, and we made the deal, and it was a very good deal for me, and it was a good deal for them. They got what they wanted, and I got an opportunity that I needed. So that's kind of the way that started, and within 2 weeks I was up there. And within 2 more weeks I had started my building on the river, which is still there in a different form because I have sold it and they've added to it, and so that was how really how I got here.
And that would have been about what year?
That would have been in '75, in spring, late spring of '75, and from that point on, when I'd go back and forth. I'd come up here and stay about 4 days and go home about 3 days, and I did that for quite a while.
And that was in the early days of the balloon racing
Yeah.
in Helen. You were into that for a while. Share some of that.
Well, everything was so new and exciting. I found myself into everything, and it was fun. It was all new, and it was something I had never participated in. Now, I had lived in Germany as a teenager, and that was really exciting when I was 14 years old. And I played baseball and football for an Army-sponsored team there, and was quite successful. So I had a special love for the motif and the design, and it was almost like going back, but not going back. But I really wanted to go back, and I did later.
Yeah. Well, you had a close call in one of those balloons.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't flown. I'd gone out and helped them with it, and we put them up and chase them and do everything that you do. And And then one day, Pete woke me up, and he said, "Would you bring, there's a gas tank downstairs in your shop that I need. Would you go get it filled and follow us, and we're going to land somewhere in this valley." And they did. And he had one of his employees with him, and me and a friend followed him out to where they landed, and he got the gas tank and put it in. He looked at me and said, "Are you ready for your first flight?" I said, "Sure, let's go." And so that's what I did. That was my first flight, and that was in 1978. So I had stood it here that long before I free fly in a balloon. I think I would have gone earlier, but I never really had the opportunity. So we took off from the valley and flew, we flew southeast, and we flew over all kind of property he pointed out that he had owned. We flew over John Collick's house, who was the designer of most all of Helen. He was a watercolor artist and very famous at that. And then we continued on over to Koa, and then it came time to land. Well, we picked through a big oak tree. He said, "Here's your first oak leaf." And he said, and I had my oak leaf, and he said, "We're going to go right over those wires and land in that field," which happened to be a driving range. It was deserted, but it was a driving range over on the far side of Toccoa. Well, he started firing the balloon, and we were going to go over these wires, and it was the trunk line to all of Toccoa. And we made it over unsuccessfully. We didn't make it over. We came in and it got closer and closer, and we were facing it just eye level. And the next thing I knew, I looked at him, and he was a cool character, but he was pretty excited at the time. Mm-hmm. And he told me, he said, "Get down the rope." I threw the nylon rope out. It was used for tethering. And I didn't see how I was going to do that. It was pretty high. And so I started down the rope, and I do not know how far I got down, but I know somewhere I got hit by the current when the balloon wrapped the wires and broke 2 or 3 of those high tension wires, and of course they fell to the ground along with me. And I don't know how long I was out, but I was out for a little bit. And I got up. I first woke up and felt around, knew that there had to be something wrong with me. I'd taken quite a fall. Later I found out I fell about 110 feet, between there and 120. And one guy in a field saw it, and he said one guy looked like he was hanging under the basket. Well, I never got the rope with my hands, but I did get it with my neck, and it wrapped from ear to ear, and I had a rope burn there for a while. And when I hit on my back and broke 2 or 3 ribs that they found in the hospital. Well, I lay there a minute, and I figured, well, I'm not dead. I can move, and I'm not really hurting. So I got up and see if I could find Pete, and I found him laying over there. and I couldn't get him to respond. And I checked him the best I could, and wires were jumping around from the fire, electric fire. And I got as away from the wires as I could and got in the creek, which was a ways away, and walked around and got over to this road I saw. And when I got there was a big mud bank, which I managed to try to crawl up, and I couldn't get up. And the police chief looked at me and said, "Were you in that balloon?" I said, "Yes, sir, I was in that balloon." And I said, "There's a man out there that needs help. I don't know how much help, but I think he's in bad shape." And as I was trying to get up the bank, another officer helped me up. And he said the same thing. "Were you in that balloon?" I said, "Yes, sir, I was in the balloon." He said, "Are you hurt?" I said, "I gotta be. I fell a long way, and I've got to be hurt, but I don't feel it." I said, "I must be in shock." And he helped me up the bank and set me down. He said, "You sit right here and I'll be back." And he pulled his patrol car up and helped me in the car. And by the time he helped me in the car, I was needing the help. And by then, there was microphones coming from everywhere. Now, we were out in the country, and these people were staying at this motel that's changed names now, and I'm not sure what it was then. It was over on the Big A Highway, and they got there quick. So he put me in the car, rolled those windows up, and wouldn't allow them to get to me, and took off for the Stevens County Hospital, which, if you ever ridden through the core, is full of these ups and downs, the way he went. And I had to ask him to slow down. I said, "I'm not hurting now, but I'm going to be if you don't slow down a little bit." And he was nice, and he slowed it down and got me to the hospital. And he checked on me one time, and I was in good hands. And I never got to see him again. And they took good care of me there. They brought Pete in to another room, and evidently he had already passed. And and I was told later that he died from a fat embolism from his thigh, where his leg had broken from the fall, and it had gone to his heart. They kept me one night and part of the next day, and then released me. Kept everybody away from me that they could, and there was a lot of journalists and FAA people wanting to visit me, because there was a lot of speculation that I was flying the balloon. I'd never flown a balloon. I think I could have. I later went on and flew them and got my license. And but it was short-lived. A couple rough flights, and I decided it was time to hang them up and live on the ground. But that was my experience with the balloons. I don't participate much with them now, and it was fun and quite an experience. I would recommend anybody who hadn't to go for a ride. If you go for a ride with the right people and in the right place. So that's pretty much it.
We're so glad that you made it through that ordeal, and sorry that Pete did not, but his dream lived on.
Well, his dream wasn't gone. He left it. He left his dream with me and 2 or 3 other people, and we did the best we could to carry it on. There's a few things that didn't get carried on, but I've got these in my book that I wrote. I wrote it in early. You can get it here at Sautee Store. I've got to go get the new copies next week. But it tells about 1 year. It's not a long book. It's about 180 pages. But it tells of my first year in Helen, which includes most everything plus more that I just told you. So I doubt that I'll tell you any more. I really prefer you buy the book from them. And you enjoy it. There's people that bought it and called me up the next day. They said, that book kept me up all night. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'm glad. It was meant to keep you up all night. Mm-hmm. So.
But you've done a lot of things in our area and contributed so much. You just recently restored an old house up in the Coochie Valley. My
wife is a Sautee native. She grew up here, went to school here, went on to Cleveland after that. And all she ever wanted to do was come back home. And I tried to get her out here. I wanted to leave. I wanted to go to the coast. And we went to the coast. And we moved to this place. And we moved to that place. But we kept a place here. And it's been a wonderful experience. We've been married 28 years now. She's younger than I am, but not a whole lot. And but that's kind of how that's worked out. But we ended up selling our house, which we had a vineyard there on Highway 17 in the Coochie Valley, and we did quite well with the vineyard. And it came a time we just decided it was time to sell out and close it because we lived there. We didn't want to. At that time, we didn't want to sell our house and our property, and so we sold it and started doing different things, and tried to go to different places on the coast, and Colorado and Georgia coast, Mississippi coast, all of it. But we experimented, and lo and behold, here we are. We ended up right back here in an old 1907 farmhouse. We've redone it, and it's been a blessing. We restored it pretty near as it was, and as this whole valley is pretty near as it was. There's a lot of history in Sautee Valley. It's the prize of the area for history. You need to come see it and visit Sautee.
Well, Hugh, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you.
I don't think we can talk.
No, I learned all kinds of stuff today. That's
did
wonderful.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. And, I got more.
I mean, as you shared, I visualized everything in my mind. You know,
yeah.
It's like radio is and of course this is a podcast, but is a theater of the mind, and so I was hanging on every word.
Oh, really?
And I was watching. I don't know that my picture is actually the way it happened, but I saw it in my mind as you shared.
Well, I'm
and
proud.
I appreciate that. Very vividly done. I thank you.
I'm proud that it did, because our audience got pretty slim because of the rain, but you know what? It's pretty good. We didn't get rained out with noise.
No, not at all. No. It sure could have been, yeah.
Come by the Old Sautee Store, pick up a copy of Hugh's book, and hear more or read more of his stories. Hugh, we appreciate you being a friend and a neighbor.
Thank you.
And coming by and visiting with us today. And Bill,
Been a good day.
it's been a good day.
It really has. Now it's cooled off a lot.
Now it's cooled off. It feels good.
Yeah, it feels really good.
Well, don't forget, I didn't tell everything I knew.
Well,
We understand. That's always a wise thing anyway.
Yeah. Well, until next time. Bill,
Take care, Don. Have a great week.
you too.
He's a bluffing. Scout. I'm trying, man.